you guys? It's Andrea and I am back with another video. If you are a new subscriber here, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please consider subscribing to our little nursing community, lifestyle community family. I would love to have you here. If you are a return subscriber, you guys know that I truly appreciate you above and beyond words. Each and every time you click on a video to watch it, each and every time you message me, comment, literally everything. I value you guys so much. Welcome back. As you guys can tell by the title, in today's video, we're taking it back to some nursing content because I want to speak to you guys specifically on this because I feel like this is a question not only myself, like I had when I was a new grad nurse, but I get, sometimes questions from you guys asking what are my suggestions. So I just wanted to drop a few tips in regards to nursing schedules. Before I get started, I just want to put this little disclaimer out there. I want you to know personally that regardless of however you decide to do your scheduling, I just want you to know that it is completely okay, because at the end of the day, everybody's preference is going to be different. So whether you like to do 3 in a row, 1 off, 1 on, 1 off, 2 on, that is completely up to you. And please do not let anybody's opinion or anybody's comment on how you decide to do your schedule affect how you schedule yourself. You know your body, you know yourself, and eventually you're gonna learn how your sleep schedule is going to do best with how you want to schedule yourself. Now, in saying all of that, I just want to say everything here is just my opinion, and it is everything I've kind of gathered from when I was a new grad nurse and how I was figuring out how I wanted to schedule myself. These are things that I kind of took into consideration, and so, if you want to take these things into consideration as well when you start making your schedule. So the number one thing I personally feel like is really important when it comes to making your schedule is, first of all, are you gonna be day shift or are you gonna be night shift? Because the two are different. At the end of the day, they are different. Day shift, you're on a pretty much normal schedule that your body has been on for the last X amount of years you've been alive, versus night shift, you are literally going to have to train your body to do the opposite of what it has been used to for the X amount of years. Now, myself personally, many of you guys already know, I was a night shift nurse and it took quite some time to adjust to the night shift schedule. And then over time, it was just something that I no longer wanted to do anymore. So I basically moved to not only moved to a whole new job, but moved to day shift in general. So yeah, it is really important that if you are for sure switching over to night shift, you just kind of mentally start preparing yourself for having to make that switch. Also with day shift as well, I feel like, and you guys may feel the same way as well, getting up for like, I don't know, a 12-hour shift versus getting up for an 8 a.m. class, not the same thing. Like you have to have you have to have rest, because not only are you getting up super early in the morning, you are about to walk into a 12-hour shift. So it's really important either way that you just start mentally preparing yourself for the changes that are to come. So another thing to take into consideration when it comes to making your schedule is, are you going to be a 3 in a row type of person? Are you gonna be a 1 off, 1 on? Are you gonna try to spread your shifts out? You have to figure that out. Now, let me just say, this is not something you're going to discover the first week of working. A lot of times, like when you're on orientation with your preceptor, you are following their schedule. So you pretty much don't have, well, at least I didn't have that much of a say of what my schedule was going to be. For the duration of my orientation, I was actually following my preceptor. And I feel like a lot of cases will be similar to that. But so yeah, in the beginning, you will not go straight in saying what your schedule is going to be. However, the benefit of that is that you can kind of see based off of what your preceptor or preceptors, how they schedule themselves, you can kind of see like, okay, hey, this is something that I kind of like. I like that they're spacing their shifts out, or I like that they're, putting all 3 of them together so they have more time off. So it really just depends. So I would definitely utilize that time when you're on orientation, seeing other people's schedule, kind of, do you like it, or is it something that you wouldn't want for yourself when it comes time to scheduling your own shifts? I'll say for me personally, I was a just complete lover of 3 in a row, simply because the way that it just set up for me, I had the half end of my week off as well as majority of my weekend. So I always worked Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. A lot of times if I was working Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it was just because I was trying to get my weekend requirement in. So that's the way I would do that schedule. And then if I met my requirements, but I still wanted to keep my 3 in a row at the beginning of the week, it would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And this worked out really well for me simply because I pretty much used all day of Wednesday to sleep and then slept in late on Thursday. But I would have pretty much Thursday, Friday, Saturday off, and then come back on Sunday or come back on that Monday, depending upon how I scheduled myself for the following week. I will say I do know of some people who love to work weekends. I am not a weekend type of gal. Like, I do not like to work on weekends. I know a lot of people tend to like to work the weekends because it gives them the full week to basically not have to work. So I think this is really beneficial. I've seen in people's experiences, like if they have kids, if they have other obligations throughout the week, they can basically take care of their shifts on the weekend and then have the whole week free. Don't get me wrong, that does sound great, but like I said, I just loved my weekends so much. And I just feel like that's where a majority of my social life lies, is on the weekends. So that just was not an option for me. But again, if that is something that sounds good to you, I would take that into consideration as well. Like I said, I have heard a lot of people who have kids that they have to take to school, have extracurricular activities during the week, that this particular schedule has worked out really well for them. The next thing, which I kind of have already touched on, is your requirements. So whatever your weekend requirements are, this regardless is going to have an effect on what your schedule kind of plays out to be. And I say that because obviously at some point you're going to have to work a Friday, if that's considered a weekend for your facility, Saturday or Sunday. Now, do you want to basically say, okay, for me, if I wanted to work my 3 in a row at my facility, or my old facility, a Sunday night was counted as a weekend. So it worked for me to work that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because that Sunday was always my weekend. Now, if it were a Friday or Saturday requirement and not, it's like Sunday wasn't considered, I truly don't know how I would have scheduled myself, because over time, something that I personally learned is that if I do not keep my sleep schedule on the best possible track, I will get a migraine. So I remember one time in particular, short little quick story, I had to work Thanksgiving, and I actually think this was last year. I had to work Thanksgiving, but I still wanted to work at the beginning of the week to kind of have a little bit of time off in between and still have my weekend after Thanksgiving off. So I think I scheduled myself for Monday, Tuesday. I was maybe off Wednesday and then came back on Thursday. And that was probably one of the worst things I could have ever done. Having a day off in between for me personally is not the best idea. I don't know anybody who likes to have one day off in between. It's just not, for me personally, I think the best idea, because if you're getting off, say I got off on that Wednesday morning, right? It's a battle between sleeping during the day, all day, or staying up all day and then going to sleep that night, but then you also have to go into work the next night. So it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of room for error, which my error was migraine. So taking your weekends into consideration, and then furthermore leading into like your holidays and stuff, that's also something you have to take into account when it comes to making your schedule. And then kind of speaking on requirements, one of the things too I would take into consideration is that if you are in a new grad program, my program did not have special requirements, but I have heard of new grad programs having requirements for their nurses' schedules. I have heard of nurses having to flip back and forth between day shift and night shift. I don't know how I could have or would have done that, but I have heard that being a requirement. And it's not like a weekly type of thing, like week 1 your day shift, week 2 your night shift, which I at least hope it's not that. But I have heard maybe for like 4 to 6 weeks you're on day shift, 4 to 6 weeks you're on night shift. Then you kind of flip back and forth between the two while you're on orientation. And then essentially when you go to night shift, or when you go to being on your own, you are then on night shift. And I get it, I totally get the benefit of that. For me personally, half of my orientation was on day shift all at one time, and then the other half, which was the end of my orientation, was on night shift. I do see the benefit of having some orientation on day shift, because as we all know, day shift can tend to be a little bit busier than night shift. You get to possibly see more things, interact with more staff that work within the hospital. You have those opportunities on day shift, more so than night shift. So you know, just figuring out what those requirements are for your program are something that you have to take into consideration. Now, a lot of new grad programs are typically for the first year that you are at that facility. So again, I don't really know if they have much say after you get off orientation, like what your scheduling would have to be. Again, for my program, they didn't have much to say, but for the part that when I was on orientation, like I mentioned before, I just strictly followed my new grad preceptor, and she actually came to night shift with me. So yeah, it just all depends on whatever they require of you. One of the other things that I feel like is super important, especially if you are at a smaller facility hospital, when you are scheduling yourself on your own off of orientation, an emphasis on a smaller facility, and you have the ability to self-schedule, meaning you go in, you pick your schedule, you can kind of see, you know, when you're putting your stuff in, how other nurses have scheduled themselves. If you have the opportunity to schedule yourself with either your preceptor, if you had multiple preceptors, kind of like try to schedule yourself with them, or schedule yourself with strong charge nurses, you are going to need that support whenever you are on your own, especially if you are at a smaller facility. My first hospital was a smaller facility, so that's something that I kind of learned over time. I mean, I didn't really think about it too much when I first got off orientation. Of course, I kind of wanted to be with my preceptor because that's who I was so used to. But looking in hindsight, I feel like, especially right now, because I feel like nursing has a shift of nurses leaving to travel, a lot of travel nurses. You really, if you can, you really want to try to schedule yourself with your preceptor if possible, or a strong charge nurse, or just strong nurses in general. So that way, if you're ever in a bind and you need that support, you really want to have them there. And of course, this is not something you always have to do, but especially for those first few months, you want to have that support with you. So to kind of tie all of this together, I want to say eventually you will find a pattern or a rhythm or a schedule that works for you, or you might not even you may never find the pattern. You may be a type of nurse that you kind of like the variety of being able to do 3 in a row one week, 2 in 1 the next week. So just don't stress about it too much in the beginning. There's so many other things to focus on other than your schedule. Learning to become comfortable as a nurse and just adjusting overall, that I wouldn't stress too much about your schedule. I can say for me, it probably did take a few months to really realize that I didn't want to move away from the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And that just worked for me. And I know plenty of nurses who, they like the block scheduling, but also I know nurses who would not do that because it only gives them like 3 to 4 days off in between. If you really play your schedule right and you schedule yourself, you know, really well, there is a chance that at some point throughout your 6 weeks of scheduling or 4 weeks of scheduling, however your facility does it, you can have like 6 to 8 days off in a row. And that's just something that, you know, I feel like has to do with like working on the weekends. So it's really all about what all works best for you. You know, and eventually you will find that rhythm. Lastly, one of the things I want to say is when it comes to your schedule, I would definitely, especially in the beginning, and even over time, you know, we can be forgetful. We can forget when we're scheduled to work. And the worst thing you could possibly do is not show up for a shift when you're supposed to be scheduled. But what's even worse than that is showing up for a shift that you're not scheduled for. So one of the apps that I would recommend getting as a nurse is Grad. What you can do is actually put your schedule into this app, and it will, you know, show you when you work for the month. So those mistakes, showing up when you're not supposed to or not showing up at all, will not happen. This is not sponsored, but one of the good things about this app is that you actually can share your schedule with other nurses. So say you have friends, you guys are trying to figure out when you can meet up, or your own colleagues at your facility, you kind of want to see, oh, who am I going to be working with this week? You have the opportunity to share your schedule and have others share their schedule with you. So that's an app that I would definitely recommend when it comes to your schedule. So yeah, hopefully all of these tips helped you guys out a little bit. Like I said, please do not overstress it. There are so many other things to worry about, not even worry about. There's so many other things to focus on in those first few months of being a nurse, that this whole schedule thing, it kind of comes over time. You find your way over time. So yeah, don't let it worry you too much. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Definitely give it a big thumbs up if you did. And I will see you guys in the next video.